Very good day to everyone. This is Alek Tiwari. I'm a partner with KPMG in India, and I welcome all of you as part of India Mobile Congress. The theme of our discussion today is edge data centers. To give you a context, this decade, or perhaps this half a decade, arguably be called as the data center decade for the country. We have close to 5 million square feet of data center capacity in the country, which is expected to triple to around 15 million square feet in the next 5 years. There are expected to be 1,000 edge data centers that are expected to come up. Uh, it is calling for an investment of more than $5 billion in the next few years. Enterprises, telcos, cloud service providers, they're all expected to invest heavily. This session is centered specifically around how Indian enterprises and telcos are increasingly looking to revamp into a digital first model and invest more into a multi cloud model and edge data centers to pursue new revenue streams and also to bring in operational efficiency. If you look at data centers expansion, it's largely happening around two areas. One is the hyperscalers, people setting up huge million square feet space in one setup. And second is the edge. And the theme of us really focuses on the edge data center and how it is bringing in agility. I'm glad I'm joined in by Mr. Benjamin Pennick. He's a senior director with the telco sales vertical in Red Hat. Hi, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm good, Alec. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be with you and everyone.
Thanks, Benjamin. So Ben, is it okay if I call you Ben?
Please, absolutely. Ben is fine.
Thanks. So Ben, talking about edge data centers, edge has been in discussions for quite some time. What are your views on, and especially given from a telco perspective, if you look at 5G use cases coming up, and some countries already optioning 5G, India is also on the line of 5G within the next 6 months to 1 year, as per we go by the government guidelines. So how do you see the opportunities of edge coming up, especially in the context of 5G?
Well, I think it's really exciting, first and foremost. Edge is a massive market for the operators and for all of us, across the industry. If you look at some of the statistics coming out, from IDC and others, it's $250 billion globally out to 2024. So the opportunity is large and the opportunity is diverse. And I think that's the exciting part for the operators. If you think to the 5G spend, the investment that they're making, it's a large spend, right? It's a huge amount of CapEx. And it's also a large change in how they operate the networks. So for me, I think the opportunity is, yes, there is a transformation that needs to happen inside of the operators, but it's the creativity and innovation that they're going to be able to drive and leverage the edge network to create some of those new revenue streams that you touched on. And I think, for me, that's the thing I get out of bed for, right? That's the exciting part of it. It's not you and I as consumers that is going to drive new revenue streams or a larger share of our wallet. It's the enterprises, and it's the ability to tap into some of those new edge use cases that will be developed, whether it's manufacturing, logistics, retail, security. We see them popping up, across the market globally. And I think, one of the things that we at Red Hat do, and, we really live, is the open source methodology and living the open source way. And we recognize, and I think the customers do as well, that open source is really going to enable the innovation and drive the creativity. If I think about, India, it's a hotbed for developers, right? Startups, entrepreneurial mind shift. And I'm really excited about the opportunities, for new companies establishing themselves in India with the ability to then, take their applications, take their workloads globally into edge data centers across the world. It's really exciting times.
Ben, you mentioned about on the revenue side, right? And that is where it's more exciting. You talked about multiple enterprises that are going to drive the opportunity, whether logistics, manufacturing, and others. We also see the advent of the CDNs, content delivery networks, and with people consuming so much of data, individuals consuming so much of data through Netflix, through OTT, and others, which is also creating a huge need of creating the content on the edge, right? So, and there is also the virtualized RAN from a telco network perspective, right? Where they're moving to a virtualized RAN and more on an open source. So, with these different movements happening, what do you think are the key industries and the key use cases that will drive the edge demand in the near to medium term?
So, Alec, I think, if you look internally at the use cases, touched on virtualized RAN and ORAN. If you look at Telefonica, Enrique Blanca came out last month and talked about ORAN and, the transformation that Telefonica is going to drive around this. I think he mentioned, 70% of the radio sites by 2025 will move to an ORAN style deployment. That's going to drive cost savings, but it's also going to enable operators to get to market faster and deploy faster. They're going to need massive scale automation to drive this. So I think, internally from an operator's perspective, definitely ORAN is going to be one of the largest use cases that's going to drive the edge. And I think that enables them to build the platforms and put in place the cloud infrastructure that they can then turn and monetize externally with the enterprise market. We see many different use cases that are already being developed. And as an example, we have a customer in Japan, NTT East, who consulted really closely with a lot of their retail customers. And in fact, they landed a solution with convenience stores, 7-Elevens, in Japan. And the intent of the solution was to help the convenience stores with revenue leakage. So it was all about theft, right? And one of the things that they looked at doing was they said, right, we need to do video processing and video analytics. And to do this in near real time, it has to be close to the convenience stores. So they were able to leverage their footprint, leverage the edge, build a solution based around a containerized platform that would allow the use of relatively low-cost cameras placed inside the convenience stores with all of the intelligence and the AI happening in the edge on the cloud that was provided by NTT. And, as they deployed this first application, what they saw was then opportunities to stack and layer in applications on top of the same hardware and utilizing the same infrastructure. So they start to drive synergies around this. And one of the second applications that they've put into market there in the same convenience stores is all based around, marketing. So they're looking to use the cameras and use the analytics to understand how product placement inside a store affects people's buying habits. So I think it's really exciting that, we deploy hardware once and then we use software to layer new applications on top of it and drive new revenue streams. And that's just one example, of many that are coming up. And I think this is the part where, we can't foresee the future. Is there a killer application? Well, probably not. But what there is there's going to be a requirement for many different applications that touch the edge. Some that we know about today, like the retail one I just talked about, and many that will be developed by, a vast ecosystem of partners on a global scale.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that just shows the possibilities, right, of what all can be done on edge. Uh, uh, Again, also adding the context of some of the other trends happening in India, there's a huge focus of the government towards smart cities and safe cities, right, and where they are actually deploying surveillance network in city as one of the pillars of smart and safe cities. And there is a lot of analytics which happens through those cameras, right? Whether it is traffic, red light, jumping, accidents, blast, so many other things. And again, I think once this comes on edge, like you rightly said, there are so many different applications that can actually use the same hardware and same infrastructure to deliver different and deliver, new use cases.
Yeah, I think
So
you're right. Yeah, it's also then ingesting that data and running analytics around it. So I think what we'll find is new use cases and new opportunities to take the data points that potentially already exist today and analyze them and produce new use cases out of them. So it is really exciting.
and what role do you think, Ben, would telcos have, in this play? And I'm also asking this with the context that telcos traditionally have tried to venture into the data center space, but generally, right, they have not really seen that much of success. Maybe it's a little different from their core business or different reasons across different countries. but it continues to be a hot space, and there naturally some synergy and adjacency to their core business, right? Looking at data centers and now possibly looking at edge data centers. So, what role do you think telcos would have to play in this opportunity?
Well, look, I think the edge footprint resides with the telcos. So the opportunity sits with the telcos to monetize their networks. We touched on, the inability to monetize, 3G and 4G previously. As we move to 5G and edge, this is what presents a large opportunity for the operators to monetize the real estate that they have, right? It's very unique. No one else has that footprint in the real estate, the points of presence, and all of those edge data centers. You think about them, there's thousands and tens of thousands of data centers that they're going to be able to leverage. And along with those data centers is the mobile network as well. And with that comes a huge amount of mobile traffic and analytics. And I think they can use that, and they can marry up the analytics from the network with the applications. And that provides some really unique insights that we're going to be able to see, new developers and new applications, drive new monetary use cases and really new revenue streams for the operators. The key is going to be the creativity and innovation, right? I think that's probably the single largest change that we'll need to see is the operators having an innovative mindset and being able to really understand the industries that they're going to play in and position those use cases. So, whether or not you're in rail or logistics or mining or education or retail, you'll need to have a fairly deep understanding of that and an understanding of your customer to be able to position use cases in that. So I think that is the area of development for the operators.
Yeah, and I think those innovative use cases is really where the key resides. That also reminds me of an interesting use case for a telco in India. They have tied up with a data center player, and where they have got the content on the edge, and they are reaching out to the internet service providers, bundling both the bandwidth from the telco perspective and the content which is coming from the data center provider, and they're going to the internet service providers and selling them together, with the benefit that the ISP doesn't have to go all the way back to the internet, right, or back to the main exchange to download a lot of data, and they can just get it from the CDN which is near to their base, which actually reduces the bandwidth cost for ISP as well. And then it gives them bigger opportunity to make more money. So this was a fantastic example where I saw both kind of telcos coming up with the edge, implementing the edge concept in a way for their own content and other content in tie up with the data center. Have you seen such any other such examples of telcos leveraging edge
Look,
globally?
I think you'll see more of that, especially in things like gaming, right? You can imagine now with gaming, as it becomes more decentralized, right, and it becomes closer to the edge, you'll see new gaming applications. And I think there's real opportunities for the operators to partner with the gaming houses and the developers to be able to look at what they're going to do in terms of games with augmented reality and things like that. I'm quite excited about the opportunities around that, because traditionally we see from a consumer mindset, the gaming industry take a leadership perspective there. So I think there's opportunities for the operators to work really closely with that industry and look at where they can position games, augmented reality, with edge data centers and benefit from the latency and the positive things that the edge is going to deliver for developers and for consumers like you and I. Not that I'm an avid gamer, but there's many people out there that are.
Great. And if you could also touch on, Ben, what is the role that Red Hat is playing in the entire the edge business?
So we're playing a really important role, because one of the things that we've believed for a long time now is hybrid cloud is the key. You're going to want to have the opportunity to place your workloads either in the private cloud or public cloud, and now out to the edge data center. So having the opportunity to put workloads in any location and being able to be flexible with the movement of those workloads is really key. Fostering the open source community and the innovation that drives, and giving our customers the flexibility of choice when it comes to partners. I think that's a really, really key decision criteria as operators look at their platforms for the next 5 and 10 years. As we've talked about, in the past, 10 and 15 minutes, there's no real understanding of what the killer use case is going to be. And we think it's going to be many different use cases. So with that, you're going to need a diverse ecosystem of partners to tap into. Red Hat has a really rich heritage in our partner ecosystem. Our partners are really important to us. If you think about partners that operators utilize today, whether it's Samsung or Amdocs or Nokia or Ericsson, we have very, very strong and deep relationships with all of them. And then I think to some of the newer, ecosystem players, in the RAN space, whether it's Mavenir or Altiostar or others, we have really good partnerships with them. And we believe that, that choice in partners drives value for our customers. I think really, as you're making the decision to, put in place a platform for the future, that's one of the key decision-making criteria is, how do I put something in place that's going to be flexible to grow with my business, to generate those new revenue streams and tap into that enterprise customer base?
Great. Thanks, Ben, for the valuable inputs. I think we've discussed today on the opportunity for edge data centers in the country, and not just in the country but globally. We've talked about the use cases, and I've discussed that there's a possibility of a lot of innovation there in use cases, because there's not necessarily a killer app or use case that will drive. And the role that telcos have to play in this, as well as the importance of open source and a platform to be able to bring in the entire partner ecosystem to develop this opportunity further. That's all we had, all the viewers from our side today. Yes, Ben, over to you for any last words from your end.
Look, no, Alec, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to speak with you and all of the viewers. Really exciting time as we forge ahead with 5G and Edge in India. I'm excited about the opportunity, and I'm certainly excited for us globally as well in the industry.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much for your time.